Good morning and welcome to the pre-Thanksgiving November 2024 open meeting of the Federal Communications Commission. Before I get started, I want to acknowledge that I'll be leaving the agency on the 20th of January and serving as a commissioner and as the first woman confirmed to be the head of the FCC has been a wild ride and a terrific honor. I am so grateful to the President for providing me with this opportunity, to the Senate for confirmation, to my colleagues here on the dais, but most of all to the talented and hardworking staff of this agency who have made it possible for us to make advanced communications technology more available to more people in more places and build a digital future that works for everyone. And with that, Madam Secretary, will you please introduce our agenda this morning?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Good morning to you and good morning, Commissioners. For today's meeting, you will hear 3 items for your consideration and 1 enforcement action. First, you will consider a notice of proposed rulemaking that would undertake the first comprehensive review of the Commission's submarine cable rules since 2001. By this proceeding, the Commission seeks comment on how best to improve and streamline the Commission's submarine cable rules to facilitate efficient deployment of submarine cables, while at the same time ensuring the security, resilience, and protection of this critical infrastructure. Second, you will consider a report and order that would strengthen the Commission's caller ID authentication rules by authorizing the use of third parties in the authentication process, subject to limits that ensure accountability for compliance with the STIR/SHAKEN standards. Third, you will consider a second report and order on reconsideration that would adopt final service rules that will enable FM and low-power FM broadcasters to use FM booster stations to originate program content. Fourth, you will consider an enforcement action. This is your agenda for today. Today's first item is titled Review of Submarine Cable Landing License Rules and Procedures to Assess Evolving National Security, Law Enforcement, Foreign Policy, and Trade Policy, an amendment of the Schedule of Application Fees set forth in sections 1.1102 through 1.1109 of the Commission's rules, and will be presented by the Office of International Affairs. Troy Tanner, Acting Chief of the Office of International Affairs, will give the introduction.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Tanner, please proceed.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. Before you is a notice of proposed rulemaking representing the first comprehensive review of the Commission's submarine cable landing license rules since 2001. At the time of the last review, the Commission's primary focus was on providing incentives for facilities-based competition and capacity expansion to meet increasing demand. Notably, since then, the national security environment has changed, and there have been increasing threats to submarine cables necessitating this comprehensive review. The notice, if adopted, would seek comment on how best to ensure the security, resilience, and protection of this critical infrastructure in an evolving threat environment, while at the same time improving and streamlining the Commission's submarine cable rules and procedures to facilitate efficient deployment of submarine cables. Drafting this notice has involved not only the great staff of the Telecom and Analysis Division in the Office of International Affairs, but excellent input from throughout the Commission, and we would like to thank all of them for their collaborative efforts on this item. With me today at the table are Tom Sullivan, Deputy Chief, and Kate Collins, Assistant Chief in the front office, and Denise Coca, Chief of the Telecommunications and Analysis Division, and Gabrielle Kim and Desiree Hansen, Attorney Advisors in the division. Desiree will present the item.
Good morning, Chairwoman Rosenworcel and Commissioners. The notice before you proposes and seeks comment on a number of actions to address national security and evolving risks to submarine cable systems and licensing. First, the NPRM proposes rules that would improve the Commission's oversight of submarine cable landing licenses by maintaining timely and accurate information on the underlying submarine cable system and its licensees throughout the 25-year license term. Specifically, licensees would be required to file a report every 3 years with the information the Commission needs to timely monitor and assess national security or other risks that may arise over the course of the license term. In the alternative, the NPRM would seek comment on whether shortening the 25-year license term or adopting a shorter license term in combination with periodic reporting would similarly account for evolving national security, law enforcement, and other risks. Second, it would propose to adopt a presumption that an entity would not be qualified for a submarine cable landing license if it previously had an application for an international Section 214 authority denied, or it had a domestic or international Section 214 authorization revoked on national security grounds. Third, it would propose to adopt new compliance certifications to protect against national security risks. Among other things, the NPRM would propose requiring applicants to certify that the submarine cable system will not use equipment or services identified on the covered list, which the Commission maintains pursuant to the Secure and Trusted Communications Networks Act. The NPRM would also propose that applicants and licensees certify that they have created, updated, and implemented a cybersecurity risk management plan. Fourth, the NPRM would propose to require applicants and licensees with or without foreign ownership to report whether they will or currently use foreign-owned managed network service providers, or MNSPs. Any applicant or licensee that indicates it uses or will use foreign-owned MNSPs would be required to answer the standard questions, and those applications would be routinely referred to the relevant executive branch agencies for their feedback on any national security or other concerns. Additionally, the NPRM would seek comment on whether applicants and licensees should be required to provide information on third-party access to the submarine cable system, including physical access, logical access, remote access services, and within network operation centers. Fifth, the item would propose and seek comment on codifying a procedural framework that the Commission may use to consider whether withholding a grant of a cable landing license or revocation of an existing cable landing license on national security or other grounds is warranted pursuant to the Cable Landing License Act or Executive Order 10530. Sixth, the NPRM would propose to adopt rules requiring applicants and licensees to provide information about their current and/or expected future services, geographic markets, and additional information about the submarine cable infrastructure. It also seeks comment on minimum applicant or licensee eligibility requirements and on lowering the current ownership reporting threshold to 5% or greater direct or indirect equity and or voting interests in the applicants and licensees. In addition to considering issues and measures related to national security and other risks, the NPRM would also address the Commission's legal jurisdiction and other legal requirements to provide regulatory certainty to submarine cable owners and operators. In this regard, it would propose to codify the long-standing practice that applicants seeking a cable landing license or modification, assignment, transfer of control, or renewal of their license must include in their application information demonstrating how the grant of the application will serve the public interest, convenience, and necessity, and that they also meet the attendant character qualifications of applicants for commission licenses and authorizations. The NPRM would also seek to modernize the existing application rules to better identify and capture targeted information that is critical to the Commission's public interest review. It would seek to improve regulatory certainty by proposing to formalize the Commission's current cable landing license application requirements, as well as proposing specific requirements for other types of applications, including applications to modify, assign, transfer control of, or renew or extend an existing cable landing license, request for special temporary authority, and pro forma assignment and transfer of control notifications. In addition, the NPR would ask for comment on other measures to protect and strengthen the security and resilience of submarine cable infrastructure, including activities in coordination with our federal partners. Streamlining procedures to expedite the FCC submarine cable review processes while ensuring that national security and law enforcement concerns are addressed, and improving the quality of the circuit capacity data reports and facilitating the sharing of that information with other federal agencies. Lastly, the NPRM would propose to amend the rules by eliminating certain provisions that are no longer applicable or consistent with Commission's current rules or practice, as well as reorganizing the submarine cable rules. The Office of International Affairs recommends adoption of the NPRM and requests editorial privileges for technical and conforming edits. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a big effort. We will now hear comments from the bench. Commissioner Carr.
Thanks so much. At the risk of derailing the meeting at the outset, I do want to just stop and express my thanks and appreciation to you and acknowledge your announcement. It's been an exceptional, a consequential run at the FCC. I think it'll end up being historic at the end of the day. And not to age any of us, but I know you started here last century at the FCC. That seems very weird to say. And I remember when I was a baby lawyer. Actually, I wasn't even a lawyer yet. I was just a baby. Back when I still had some hair,
This has aged you too.
I know. It's gonna get worse. I was an intern here in the early to mid 2000s while I was still in law school. I remember being in the old FCC cafeteria and seeing you staffing Commissioner Copps at the time and sort of following him around. And it's been amazing to see the run and everything that you've accomplished. And just to me personally, you reached out to me within days of being chair and offered to do events together on telehealth, and that was something that was just very, very meaningful to me. I think it set a tone for us to be able to collaborate on a lot. We didn't collaborate on everything. Not everything ended up being able to collaborate on, but a good portion of stuff, and you set the tone early for a bipartisan agenda, and I really appreciate that, so thanks. But again, at the risk of derailing it, there will be lots of time, I'm sure, to do more and more of that. But just thank the team for the work on this item. I think it's a very timely effort, and look forward to continuing to work on it. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Starks.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Also, on a personal privilege, want to congratulate you on your announcement. Very consequential, and there will, of course, be another time and another place for us to, in addition to January, to celebrate you. But it has been an honor. We've served for many years together, obviously as minority commissioners when Ajit Pai was chair, to obviously now your historic chairwomanship, and truly the legacy that you will leave. And it's definitely a day to celebrate that, at least in part here today. To the item. 184 years ago, in 1840, Samuel Morse was the very first to suggest linking the United States and Europe via an underwater cable. It took another 18 years before that vision was realized, and the first message was successfully transmitted under the Atlantic. In our modern world, the public rarely pays attention to submarine cable deployments and landings, but the Commission, of course, regulates this closely and for good reason. These cables crisscross our oceans, our seas, and they are essential. They carry nearly all global internet traffic, over 98% to be precise, and they tie together computers and networks that make up the internet, facilitate cloud computing, and deliver what we all expect is data on demand. These cables are vital, and they support American innovation, and they are fueling significant aspects of our economy. And for these same reasons, submarine cables face clear security threats. In 2020, I called out the need for additional work and attention on undersea cables, laid out the case for us to better secure these cables from bad actors who seek to block, intercept, reroute internet traffic, or sabotage these cables altogether. That risk in particular is not just theoretical. Just this past Sunday in the Washington Post, it was noted a subsea cable between Lithuania and Sweden was cut, And this Tuesday, a submarine cable connecting Finland and Germany was also severed. Notably, as reported, and those countries are still investigating, these actions appear to be purposeful and intentional and part of a hybrid campaign that combines attacks on physical infrastructure along with cyber attacks. So while many of the world's companies build submarine cables are based in the United States and allies, others are owned and operated by entities located in or controlled by adversarial countries such as China. And so I've long called for the Commission to take a closer look, as we do here today, on who owns these cables, who and what equipment powers them. 4 years ago, I wrote, and I quote, "Given that the issues surrounding undersea cables will only become more complex and more important to our national security, we must take a close look at whether our regulatory authority is sufficient to meet the moment," close quote. And I am truly glad that we are answering that call here today. I strongly support the Commission's notice to update and modernize our submarine cable rules, as was noted for the very first time since 2001. And by codifying our jurisdiction, legal requirements, improving Commission's oversight of submarine cables, collecting targeted information about the cables for national security purposes, we are going to address the critical challenges that are here before us. The ultimate goal will be for us to deploy faster, have more advanced and more secure cables to power our world, including all of the next generation technologies that we all look forward to, including, but not exclusive of, AI. I want to thank the chairwoman for her leadership on this item, for the team as well, for agreeing, of course, as well to work with me and my office as we develop a record that I hope will support both the deployment and security, as I mentioned, of submarine cables. And so to that end, I'll just recap a couple of things that I thought were extremely important that I worked with the chairwoman and the team on. We now ask whether we should streamline domestic cable deployment where there is no nexus necessary to a country of concern. Also about the capital investment and lifespan of subsea cable fiber optic technology to help inform how we conduct reviews of licenses, how we identify various classes of risk to help focus the factors that we assess associated with cables. On the point on security in particular that I have been focused on, we now seek comment on limiting submarine cable licenses to entities that are not on our covered list and other federal lists, such as the Department of Commerce's consolidated screening list, and on ensuring that licensees do not deploy equipment or services from entities on the covered list as part of their cable infrastructure. And lastly, whether the Commission should work with applicants and stakeholders who share risk information and threat alerts consistent with National Security Memorandum 22. This was a heavy item, very dense, very well done. Strong proposals to modernize our submarine cable rules with economic and national security in mind, the realities of 2024 and not 2001. I look forward to the record that develops and great work by the team. I strongly approve. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Commissioner Symington.
Thank you. This is a fitting item to be the first one teed up following the chairwoman's announcement, because what does it represent? Technical modernization, national security, and bipartisan consensus. So it's truly been an honor to serve on the Rosenworcel Commission and to continue to do so for the next few months on working on items such as this one. Of course, I'm happy to approve. As Commissioner Starks in particular has noted, it's a particularly timely and important endeavor when just days ago in the Baltic Sea, we saw in real time just how vulnerable subsea communications infrastructure is to sabotage from adversaries. I guess I'd like to also join my fellow commissioners in commenting on the truly extensive and in some cases right down to the wire 11th hour work that has been necessary to get this item to this level of completion and to thoughtfully integrate it with everything else that the Commission does. So I would like to take special note. I know we always thank the staff. I think this is an extra special thank you to the staff for extraordinarily committed work. I know there's been a lot of late nights on this, and it shows in the final item. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gomez.
Okay, I pushed the wrong button. Sorry, guys. Madam Chairwoman, I too want to join in thanking you for your leadership on so many critical issues. I, of course, will have more to say before you go, but the list is long. You focused on the right issues. Consumers, especially those that historically have been marginalized or left behind, economic priorities, such as the space economy, and national security. Your impact will be felt by many, and I want to thank you personally for your support and friendship. Your commitment to good government and your management of this agency, which is a special place, helped make my transition to commissioner seamless, so thank you. And Commissioner Carr, congratulations on your designation to serve as chairman of this special agency and the leader of its staff. I look forward to working with you for the benefit of all consumers. And now, to the submarine cable item. In my earlier years at the commission as a staffer, last century, I had the opportunity to take a tour of a submarine cable repair ship based in Baltimore Harbor. It was a great field trip. At the time, I was floored to learn that there is a fully staffed ship sitting at the ready 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, so that it can deploy on extraordinarily short notice to locate, retrieve, and repair damaged cables from the bottom of the ocean in order to keep critical communications moving. It is really impressive to see in person, and it brings home the significance of submarine cables to the worldwide communication system. An extraordinary and ever-increasing volume of data is constantly traversing the growing network of submarine cables. Put simply, ensuring the security and stability of this network has significant national security and economic impacts, and it has been the Commission's responsibility since 1954. This notice of proposed rulemaking is a thorough and detailed analysis, as we have heard, containing a range of proposals from codifying long-existing practices to identifying emergency threats and proposing new requirements aimed at addressing such threats in a clear, targeted, and balanced way. These are important issues that will have a lasting impact, and to get it right, we will need to work collaboratively with our federal partners and with industry as we move forward. So I look forward to engaging with stakeholders on this important matter. Thank you to the staff as well of the Office of International Affairs for your good work on this item.
Thank you, commissioners, for your kind words and also your acknowledgement of just what an effort this was from the agency staff. You may not realize it, but modern life depends on submarine cables. They are buried in the deep, dark depths of the ocean. They're easy to miss. But more than 95% of internet traffic across the globe travels over these facilities, including financial transactions that add up to more than $8 trillion a day. With the expansion of data centers, rise of cloud computing, and increasing demands for bandwidth for large language models, these facilities are poised to grow even more critical. There are 84 submarine cables licensed in the United States. They are now a vital part of our national and economic security. But despite the increase in their importance and advancements in technology, our practices overseeing these facilities have not changed much during the last 2 decades. At the FCC, I believe it's time to fix this, and I'm not the only one who feels this way. Last month, Senators Murphy, Young, Kaine, Rubio, Shaheen, Ricketts, Schatz, and Sullivan, all members of the Foreign Relations Committee, wrote the President expressing concern about the security of the global network of undersea communications. They're right. Last year, Taiwan accused 2 Chinese vessels of cutting the only 2 cables that support internet access on the Matsu Islands. More than 14,000 people were stuck in digital darkness for 6 weeks. Cables in the Baltic Sea used by Germany, Sweden, Estonia, Lithuania, and Finland have been tampered with multiple times, as some of my colleagues mentioned, as recently as this week. An investigation of an earlier incident suggested Russian ships in the area were responsible. This year, Houthi attacks in the Red Sea may have been responsible for the cut of 3 cables that provide internet service to Europe and Asia. And while the details of these incidents remain in dispute, what is clear is that these facilities, with locations that are openly published to prevent damage, are becoming a target. Add to this the vulnerabilities that come from trawling anchors, aquatic life, and climate disturbances, and it's clear we need to do more to protect these facilities. Now, efforts are already underway. The Quad partnership of Australia, India, Japan, and the United States has a joint initiative to bolster the security and resilience of undersea communications. It includes sharing information, increasing repair capability, and developing common standards to protect against physical threats and related cyber disturbances. At the gathering of the United Nations General Assembly in September, over 30 countries joined the United States in support of what are now called the New York Principles on Undersea Cables, which detail shared approaches for the security, interoperability, sustainability, and maintenance of submarine cable infrastructure. Now it's time for the FCC to step up because we have a role too. Under the Cable Landing License Act, all submarine cable operators are going to need a license from this agency. Integrating these facilities with communications networks requires review under the Communications Act. In addition, foreign ownership interests may lead us to refer a license application to the Committee for the Assessment of Foreign Participations in the United States Telecommunications Services sector. So with this legal framework in the background, for the first time in more than 2 decades, we propose a comprehensive review of our submarine cable policies. It is designed to improve and streamline our rules to encourage the deployment of these facilities, while at the same time supporting the security, resilience, and protection of this infrastructure in a modern way. As an example, consider that under our current practice, a cable landing license is granted for 25 years without requiring any real update about who owns it or controls the facility. That is a quarter of a century during which information about foreign investment and interconnection essential for the secure flow of data traffic is not updated. That is too long. We propose an update every 3 years. We do this so that this agency has the information it needs to timely monitor and continually assess any risks to our national and economic security. We also propose to keep foreign companies that have been denied licenses under the Communications Act on national security grounds from obtaining submarine cable landing licenses. At the same time, we propose to bar the use of equipment or services from the FCC covered list in these licensed facilities. As this effort proceeds, we need to recognize that a global challenge like this needs global solutions. We will need to take our approach to multi-stakeholder communities and engage others. And for this reason, I am gratified that we have the Office of International Affairs. Since it was launched a little over a year and a half ago, it has been working hard on security matters and forging global partnerships that are essential. So I want to thank them and their many colleagues across the agency for their input here, and it's a long list, so get ready, including Stacey Ashton, Denise Coca, Kate Collins, Jody Cooper, Francis Gutierrez, Desiree Hansen, Jacqueline Jedrich, Gabriel Kim, David Kretsch, Joseph Meyer, Janice Shields, Thomas Sullivan, Svante Swider, Troy Tanner, and Lisa Williams from the Office of International Affairs. Mohammed Ahmad, Alec McDonald, Julia McHenry, Lester Roberts, Stephen Rosenberg, Michelle Schaefer, Daniel Scheinman, Emily Talaga, Alex Yankovic from the Office of Economics and Analytics. Susan Aaron, Michelle Ellison, Andrea Kelly, Douglas Klein, Dave Konskow, Wade Lindsay, Erica Olson, Joel Rabinowitz, Roy Sherlock, Anjali Singh, Elliot Tarloff, and Shin Yu from the Office of General Counsel. Michael Antonio, Kenneth Carlberg, Deb Jordan, Leon Kenworthy, Nicole McGinnis, Zenji Nakazawa, Austin Randazzo, Jim Schlichting, and James Wiley from the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau. Ira Keltz and Dana Schaefer from the Office of Engineering and Technology, Trent Harkrader, Jody May, and Terry Natoli from the Wireline Competition Bureau, Hunter Deely, Loyan Igal, Peter Hyun, and William Knowles Kellett from the Enforcement Bureau, Adrian McNeil and Marissa Velez from the Space Bureau, Jeffrey Tignor and Shauna Wilkerson from the Office of Communications Business Opportunities, and Dan Daly, Roland Helvagian, and Dylan Johnson from the Office of the Managing Director. That might be a record. I've been doing this a while. All right. We will proceed to a vote on the item. Commissioner Carr.
Approve.
Commissioner Starks.
Approve.
Commissioner Symington.
Approve.
Commissioner Gomez.
Approved.
The chair votes aye. The item is adopted with editorial privileges as requested. Madam Secretary, would you please announce the next item on today's agenda?
Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, item 2 on your agenda is titled Enhancing Caller ID Authentication Rules and will be presented by the Wireline Competition Bureau. Trent Harkrader, Chief of the Bureau, will give the introduction.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Harkrader, whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you and good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. The Wireline Competition Bureau is pleased to present for your consideration a report in order that, if adopted, would establish clear rules of the road for providers that rely on third parties to fulfill their stir, shake, and implementation obligations under the Commission's rules. I would like to thank, of course, the entire Bureau team that worked on this, as well as our colleagues in the Consumer and Governmental Affairs, Enforcement, Public Safety, and Homeland Security bureaus, as well as the Offices of Communications Business Opportunities, Economics and Analytics, and the Office of General Counsel for their incredibly helpful input. Joining me at the table from the Bureau are Sue McNeil, Associate Bureau Chief, Zach Ross, Assistant Division Chief of the Competition Policy Division, and Emily Kaditz, an Attorney Advisor who will present the item. Over to you.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. The Stir Shaken Caller ID Authentication Framework is one of the most significant tools at the Commission's disposal to protect consumers from illegal robocalls. Currently, some providers rely on third parties to fulfill their Stir Shaken implementation obligations. While this can yield economic and other benefits, stakeholders have expressed concern that these practices are undermining the Stir Shaken framework through improper attestations of caller ID information and diminished accountability for providers. This report and order, if adopted, would increase confidence in the nation's voice network by adopting rules that authorize the use of third parties and the caller ID authentication process, subject to clear limits that will ensure that the party with the implementation obligation under the Commission's rules remains accountable for meeting the requirements of the Stir Shaken technical standards. Specifically, if adopted, the report and order would adopt a definition of third-party authentication that provides clear guidance regarding the third-party authentication practices authorized and prohibited by the new rules. It would authorize providers with the Stir Shaken implementation obligation to engage third parties to perform the technological act of digitally signing calls, consistent with the requirements of the Stir Shaken technical standards, subject to two conditions. First, the provider with the implementation obligation itself makes the critical attestation level decisions for authenticating the caller ID information associated with its calls. And second, all calls are signed using the certificate of the provider with the implementation obligation, not the certificate of a third party. The report and order would further require that any provider certifying to partial or complete Stir Shaken implementation in the robocall mitigation database must be registered with the Stir Shaken Policy Administrator, obtain a certificate from a certificate authority, and authenticate all its calls with that certificate, whether directly or through a third party. And finally, the report and order would adopt record-keeping requirements regarding third-party authentication arrangements to ensure compliance with the Commission's rules and promote accountability amongst providers. The Bureau recommends adoption of this report and order and requests editorial privileges. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now hear comments from the bench, beginning with Commissioner Carr.
Thanks to the team for the work on this. As you indicated, the Stir Shaken framework is probably one of our most significant tools for combating illegal robocalls, and today we take a look at addressing this third-party issue to see if we can even further improve it. So thanks so much to the team for your work on it. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Starks.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Agree. Thank you for the hard work for the team. This is absolutely essential as we continue to crack down on these calls and robocalls. And so looking at the third parties is it has my strong support. Thank you.
Commissioner Symington.
No comments at this time other than to express my appreciation to the team for their continued development in this perpetually thorny area.
Commissioner Gomez.
Thanks. So we all agree that robocalls are an ongoing nuisance, and this is particularly true of spoofed calls, when scammers use false caller ID information to appear trustworthy. So we keep working at nearly every commission meeting on these unwanted intrusions to combat them in our everyday life. So notwithstanding our efforts, robocalls continue to be the #1 complaint that we receive from consumers. So today we strike the right balance for implementing STIR/SHAKEN technical standards that help prevent robocalls. Providers will be able to realize economic benefits and efficiencies from working with third parties without compromising the trust and governance structure of the STIR/SHAKEN regime. And I'm pleased that the flexibility to use third-party authentication solutions will help small providers in particular reduce their STIR/SHAKEN compliance costs. So STIR/SHAKEN is a significant tool in our toolbox to fight robocalls, and today's order will help providers make investments in this important framework to the ultimate benefit of consumers. So I commend the staff of the Wireline Competition Bureau and all the staff at the agency for your continued hard work to protect consumers from these unwanted robocalls.
Thank you, Commissioners. The scammers behind illegal robocalls are relentless. Whenever we close a loophole they use to send unwanted calls, they look for new ways to flood our networks with this junk. That means that the FCC, this agency, needs to be just as tireless in its efforts to identify these loopholes and stop bad actors from exploiting them. That's true today, tomorrow, and in the future too. Here we take steps to close a loophole that involves STIR/SHAKEN. Now, STIR/SHAKEN is a technology that 3 years ago we required carriers to use when they originate and terminate calls. It provides call authentication information that helps prove that a caller is really who they say they are and not a scammer using the network for fraud. That is why on your phone today you can see when an incoming call is identified as a spam risk. That's the network using this technology and letting you know that answering is not worth your time. We did that. Right now, most carriers deploy STIR/SHAKEN technology on their own. Others use third-party solutions. And working with a third party can make sense for some carriers because it can help keep costs down and also help keep this junk off the line. But it can also allow carriers to turn the other way and make the mess of unwanted calls somebody else's responsibility. And that's not right. We shut down this loophole today. In this order, we describe when and how carriers can use third-party solutions to put in place STIR/SHAKEN technology on their networks. In other words, we set the ground rules for how to use a third party for call authentication and make clear that carriers bear the ultimate responsibility for compliance. To facilitate this, we make sure that providers that have filled in our robocall mitigation database get a token and digital certification so that other providers in the call path can trust who they say they are. This means you can use a third party to assist with STIR/SHAKEN obligations, but you can't use this arrangement to look the other way and pass the buck if problems come up. Closing this loophole matters because every little change helps. But to really stop the flood of illegal robocalls, we're going to need some bigger changes. We need Congress to fix the gaping loophole left by the Supreme Court in a decision narrowing the definition of autodialer under the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. That substantially reduces our ability to protect consumers from junk robocalls and robotexts. We also need to make sure that when this agency issues big fines for illegal robocalls, we can hold the bad actors responsible by taking them to court and not just rely on the Department of Justice to do so. When coupled with the work of the Industry Traceback Group and the 49 state attorneys general I now have partnering with this agency to help stop robocalls, these changes would make a big difference. All right, back to the here and now. A big thank you to the robocall response team and the staff responsible for this order, including Eric Beath, Emily Kaditz, Callie Coker, Liz Drugula, Trent Harkrader, Jody May, Jonathan Lecter, Sue McNeil, Zachary Ross, and Mason Chifa from the Wireline Competition Bureau. Maureen Bisco, Ken Carlberg, and Deb Jordan from the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau. Jerusha Burnett, Aaron Garza, Wes Platt, Alejandro Roark, and Christy Thornton from the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. Leon Egal, Alexander Hobbs, Rakesh Patel, Daniel Stepanisic, Christy Thompson, and Jane Van Benton from the Enforcement Bureau. Melina Barzilai, Michelle Ellison, Wade Lindsay, Richard Mallon, Erica Olson, Joel Rabinovitz, Elliot Tarloff, Derek Yu, and Shin Yu from the Office of General Counsel, Chelsea Fallon, Stacy Jordan, Eugene Kiselev, and Julia McHenry from the Office of Economics and Analytics, and Jocelyn James, Michael Gusso, Jeffrey Tignor, and Shauna Wilkerson from the Office of Communications Business Opportunities. And we will now proceed to a vote on the item. Commissioner Carr?
Approve.
Commissioner Starks?
Approve.
Commissioner Symington?
Approve.
Commissioner Gomez?
Approved.
The chair votes aye. The item's adopted with editorial privileges as requested. Madam Secretary, please announce the next item on today's agenda.
Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, the third item on your agenda is titled Program Originating Boosters and will be presented by the Media Bureau. Holly Sauer, Chief of the Bureau, will give the introduction.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. When you're ready, Ms. Sauer, please proceed.
Good morning, Chairwoman and Commissioners. Today, the Media Bureau presents a second report in order, an order on reconsideration, that finalizes our rules to allow FM booster stations to originate programming on a limited basis. Joining me are Irene Bleiweiss and Al Schuldner of the Media Bureau's Audio Division. Irene will present the item.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. The item before you continues our work to allow FM broadcasters to use booster stations in a new and innovative way. It updates rules to transform FM booster stations from a tool just for overcoming weak signals into an enhanced way to bring targeted local content to listeners. FM boosters are very low power secondary stations that rebroadcast on the same frequency as their primary station. Until recently, the only purpose of FM boosters was to rebroadcast to areas where reception is poor, such as when there's a mountain that's blocking the primary station from serving its community. Our rules didn't allow booster stations to originate content, but advances in technology have made it possible for boosters to air programming different from their primary station without causing interference. Boosters now can provide customized programming to better reflect the interest of specific zones. Stations choosing to use this technology might, for up to 3 minutes an hour, air hyperlocal news and weather reports or advertisements for small local businesses. Last April, the Commission authorized boosters to originate programming, but only on an experimental basis. To foster a more permanent rollout, the Commission proposed to adopt operating rules and administrative procedures. The April order concluded that program originating boosters wouldn't affect broadcasters on adjacent channels or prevent listeners from receiving emergency alerts, because booster signals can extend beyond those of the main station. In today's item, the Commission adopts additional safeguards to further address comment or concerns about interference. For example, it establishes procedures to predict and address potential interference before it can occur, adopts a cap on the number of program originating boosters a single station may operate, and creates notifications so that other broadcasters and emergency alert participants will be aware of a booster's program origination. The item also updates the rules to account for use of these boosters for political advertising and adopts a public interest certification to serve as a regular reminder to use program origination equitably as an enhancement to reach listeners in specific zones rather than to exclude those in another. The Bureau recommends adoption of this item and requests editorial privileges.
Thank you. We will now hear comments from the bench. Commissioner Carr.
Thanks.
First of all, I want to express my thanks and appreciation to the team for all the hard work on this, and to Commissioner Starks as well. This is an idea, a proceeding, initiative that he really put his shoulder to the wheel on, and it's made a big difference. It's something that is going to help local broadcasters further serve their local communities. It's going to benefit, I think, collaterally, a lot of small businesses as well along the way. It's something that's taken a lot of work to get here, and it's something, again, that Commissioner Starks really identified, and I think it's an important contribution to the whole broadcast industry that he worked on this and got it across the finish line. So thanks again to the team for the work on it. I appreciate it.
Commissioner Starks.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. The media landscape is constantly changing. Earlier this year, the Commission unanimously approved, as we heard, the first order to allow geo-targeting on an experimental basis. And broadcasters were given the green light. They began innovating business plans, exploring opportunities to leverage this technology that could unlock new revenue streams. Today's order finalizes the new tools broadcasters can utilize as they adapt and hopefully thrive in a competitive media environment. The ability to offer hyper-localized content means that a station can attract small businesses looking to customize their advertisements to targeted audiences, better reach their local communities. These new advertising streams can make a real difference, especially for the many small and minority broadcasters that I've heard from that are working hard to stay on the air. I know firsthand because I got to witness the potential, the excitement, the opportunity of this technology firsthand. Just last month, I hit the road and visited KADD 93.5 La Mejor in Las Vegas. La Mejor is one of the largest Spanish-speaking stations in the region. It is investing in truly local content, including news, talk, and music, and to reach new listeners outside of their current range and target them with content with greater precision. KADD is deploying FM boosters that will provide the station with access to an estimated 100,000 new listeners. And so for KADD, I can assure you that this is a game changer. The opportunity to provide more Spanish speakers in the area with local bespoke content and establishing a crucial link to their community. Geo-targeted content is, I think, the dawn of a new possibility for radio. From my perspective, we've set the policies, we've opened up the technology, and so now it's up to each business to decide if this opportunity is right for them. And so I look forward to seeing how the industry continues to harness this technology to serve their communities, uplift communities, and how this will develop. This order was many years in the making, the result of tireless advocacy by broadcasters, civil rights organizations, leaders in Congress, including Congressional Black Caucus Chairman Stephen Horsford, Congressman Benny Thompson, Congressman Hank Johnson, just to name a few. But truly, none of this would have been possible without the collaboration of my colleague, Commissioner Carr. He and I worked hard on this together, side by side on this proposal, to bring it to the finish line, and it was not easy. For many of you who've studied this record, it's been one of the, it was not straightforward, it was not easy. And so there were many dog days on this, and I appreciate Commissioner Carr, who, again, we just were side by side on this thing to bring it to the finish line. I'm proud of this result, proud of the work by the team. Also like to thank, of course, the chairwoman for working hard with us as well to prioritize this item and get it here. To Commissioner Symington, Commissioner Gomez for their collaboration to see this through the tape. And so many thanks, of course, again, to the staff for their hard work on this item and their great work. It has my full support. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Symington.
Thank you. No statement at this time.
Commissioner Gomez.
So during my first year as a commissioner, I've met with numerous broadcasters across the country, from San Antonio to South Florida to Albuquerque to Las Vegas and more. Local broadcasters work hard to keep Americans informed, to provide critical information during times of emergency, and to serving the needs and interests of their local communities. They give people the information they need to make simple day-to-day decisions like what to wear based on the weather, and big picture decisions such as who should be the next mayor of their town. Seeing all the important work that broadcasters do on the ground has helped me understand the dynamics and challenges affecting their markets, and I remain committed to preserving localism in broadcasting. I'm pleased to see how what we're doing today can help. Geo-broadcasting has the potential to help broadcasters further serve their communities by providing more relevant, hyper-local content. I look forward to seeing how this service is rolled out. So thank you to the Media Bureau for your hard work on this item.
Thank you, commissioners. There is something special about a voice in the air, especially one that is truly local. This superpower of radio stations makes them unique in a media landscape that is evolving at a rapid pace. Our action today, championed by Commissioner Starks and Commissioner Carr, provides FM broadcasters with the expanded opportunity to use boosters to customize hyper-local content to different parts of their service area. This means the potential for more diverse content. It also means a new way to engage small businesses with advertising opportunities. It gives them a chance to innovate and grow their audiences at a time when they face more competition for our attention than ever before. Thank you to the staff who worked on this effort, including Irene Bleiweiss, Jim Bradshaw, Heather Dixon, Lisa Scanlon, Gary Schonman, and Al Schaldiner from the Media Bureau. Susan Aaron, Joel Graham, Dave Konskow, Jin Lee, Royce Sherlock, and Anjali Singh from the Office of General Counsel. Austin Randazzo from the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau, and Jocelyn James from the Office of Communications Business Opportunities. And we will now proceed to a vote on the item. Commissioner Carr?
Approve.
Commissioner Starks?
Approve.
Commissioner Symington?
Approve.
Commissioner Gomez?
Approve.
The chair votes aye. The item is adopted with editorial privileges as requested. Thank you. Madam Secretary, please announce the next item on today's agenda.
Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners, item 4 on your agenda is an enforcement action and will be presented by the Enforcement Bureau. Peter Hyun, Acting Chief of the Enforcement Bureau, will give the introduction.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. All right, now the standard language. Because this item is an enforcement action, we're going to switch the order up just as the Commission has done in past cases that involve similar presentations at an open meeting. As with all open meeting items, the Bureau circulated this to every commissioner at least 3 weeks ago. But there's a longstanding practice at the agency that we do not publicly disclose parties of enforcement matters unless and until the Commission decides to take action. For these types of items, this means that the agency formally votes on the item, then here's a brief presentation from the Bureau before proceeding to any statements that commissioners may have. This process ensures that these sensitive matters will not be publicly disclosed until the FCC has voted to take action. And again, we are following that precedent here. So we are going to proceed right now to a vote on item 4, the enforcement action. Commissioner Carr?
Approve.
Commissioner Starks?
Approve.
Commissioner Symington?
Sound.
Commissioner Gomez?
Approve.
The chair votes aye. The item's adopted with editorial privileges if requested. Mr. Hyun, please proceed with introducing the item.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. Thank you for your consideration and your votes on this critical case. Today's item is a notice of apparent liability for forfeiture against Eken Group Limited for submitting false statements in its applications to the Commission. Eken is an electronics device manufacturer based in Hong Kong that received multiple FCC equipment authorizations to import, sell, and market low-cost video surveillance cameras in the United States. The Enforcement Bureau worked closely with our colleagues in the Office of Engineering and Technology to uncover the false information filed under the FCC's equipment authorization rules. In 2022, the Commission adopted new equipment authorization rules that require foreign manufacturers to designate an agent for service of process in the United States. These rules were put in place to ensure, in part, that the Commission can hold companies accountable for violations of law involving their products and practices, even when located abroad. Indeed, the Commission plays a crucial role in protecting the American public from potential harms arising from wireless consumer IoT devices, particularly those manufactured overseas and including in jurisdictions subject to the control of foreign adversaries. In this way, regulatees who evade these rules create risks to consumer privacy and national security. This NAL shows the Commission's commitment to mitigating those risks and enforcing rules that protect American consumers and the integrity of both the communications networks and the Commission's Equipment Authorization Program. With me at the table are Assistant Bureau Chiefs Alice Sa-Ju and Hunter Deely, and from the Telecommunications Consumers Division, Jeff Gary, Acting Assistant Division Chief, and Samuel Hanks, Attorney Advisor. Samuel will now present the item.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. This NAL concerns 3 equipment authorization applications made to the Commission by Eken Group Limited, each of which contained a false factual statement in apparent violation of Sections 1.17A2 and 2.911D7 of the Commission's rules. We propose a forfeiture of $734,872 for these 3 apparent violations and 1 apparent violation of failing to respond to a Commission order. In February 2024, ConsumerReports.org published an investigation into video doorbells imported from China and sold on e-commerce marketplaces. The report identified serious privacy and security concerns, including unencrypted personal data and remote access vulnerabilities in devices made by Eken. According to the report, people with physical access to the doorbells could take over the device in just a few simple steps and receive images remotely without the owner knowing. Eken is a Hong Kong-based manufacturer that has imported and sold smart home devices and security cameras in the United States since 2014. Following a 2022 report and order, the Commission has required equipment authorization applicants to designate an agent for process of service in the United States. Eken's 3 authorization applications made after this report and order designated a Colorado corporation called GSS Service Incorporated as its agent. The applications were signed by a person named Michoud Logan, acting as the representative for GSS Service. The Enforcement Bureau opened an investigation into the privacy and security vulnerabilities identified by Consumer Reports and issued a letter of inquiry to Eken via its agent on April 19, 2024. The Bureau attempted to serve the letter of inquiry by certified mail to the physical U.S. address of GSS Service, as well as Michoud Logan's email address and the email address of the Eken employee who submits equipment authorization applications to the Commission. A few days later, the Bureau received notice that the letter of inquiry had not been delivered and arranged for personal service on May 9, 2024. As a result of the attempts at personal service and other investigative efforts, the Bureau learned that GSS Service's address, used in both its documents of incorporation and on FCC applications, was a virtual mailbox at a mailing business in Colorado called The Mail Center. This specific mailbox was opened in 2018 and closed in 2019 by The Mail Center due to apparently fraudulent activity. The mailbox was closed roughly 4.5 years before Eken listed the mailbox as the address of its designated agent in the applications discussed previously. The closure was also roughly 2 years before GSS Service was incorporated in Colorado, again using that mailbox. The co-owner of the mail center confirmed to Bureau staff that GSS Service has never been a customer of the mail center. The Bureau continued its investigation and did not find any evidence of the existence of GSS Service or Michoud Logan outside of FCC and Colorado filings. Apart from one short email sent to a Commission staff member from Michoud Logan's email address, GSS Service, Logan, and Eken have not responded to the Commission. Thus, based on the record, we determined that each of Eken's 3 recent applications contained an incorrect statement about their agent for service of process. The NAL proposes a total forfeiture of $734,872 for 4 apparent violations, 1 for failing to respond to the letter of inquiry, and 3 for material incorrect statements made to the Commission in violation of Sections 1.17A2 and 2.911D7 of the Commission's rules. The Enforcement Bureau appreciates the Commission's adoption of this item.
Thank you. We will now hear comments from the bench. Commissioner Carr.
Thank you to the team for the investigative work on this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Commissioner Starks.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Insecure IoT devices pose a real and tangible threat to Americans. Devices that lack baseline cybersecurity protections, such as Eken's video doorbells, dramatically increase the entry points for cyber attacks. And once a hacker is in, they can wreak mayhem, identity theft, espionage, fraud that costs consumers billions of dollars. That's not a theory, that's a fact. Beyond the risk to individual households, this is a larger threat to our national security. These devices may also become part of a botnet, contributing to large-scale attacks. Again, this is not a theory, this is a fact. The Flax Typhoon breach, for example, we now know was a Chinese-controlled botnet made up of 260,000 IoT devices and routers used to spy on sensitive organizations in the United States and across the globe. Back in 2019, I called for the Commission to use its Equipment Authorization Authority to improve our network security. In 2021, as we initiated a proceeding to review those rules, I fought for the Commission to require each applicant for equipment authorization to designate a contact located in the United States to serve as an agent to access service of process. And I strongly supported our order in 2022 when we did just that. I have long felt that too many bad actors relied on our service of process rules as a loophole to evade enforcement and flood our markets with equipment that wouldn't otherwise have passed muster. And no more. Bad actors should know and must know that they won't be able to duck and dodge our rules. The enforcement action we have today backs that up. Eken apparently illegally marketed and sold insecure IoT devices in the United States that put American consumers and our communication networks at risk. Once Eken's equipment was identified as a threat, I wrote letters to 5 of the largest online retailers serving the United States back in March of this year, calling for them to stop the sale of these insecure and unauthorized devices. Those letters, I'm glad to say, have led to an important dialogue on protecting consumers this way, and today we take the next step, the right step, in pursuing the manufacturer here today that, as alleged, has disregarded our rules. Take note, any manufacturer that seeks to flood our markets with cheap and insecure equipment while lying about compliance will similarly hear from our enforcement team as we seek to keep Americans safe. Thank you to the Enforcement Bureau for their hard work on this item. Thank you to the chair for bringing it. It has my strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Symington.
Thank you. No comments at this time.
Commissioner Gomez.
So the Commission has done significant work to streamline our equipment authorization processes to allow innovators to get to the market faster. But in order for these processes to work, we need participants to give us truthful and complete information. So thank you to the Enforcement Bureau for your continuous work to ensure the integrity of these processes.
Thank you, commissioners. So last week I was in Cape Town at the Africa Tech Festival. It feels like a lifetime ago, but it's true. And it's the premier gathering of public and private sector technology interests on the continent. If you need an object lesson in the power of connection, this is the place to be. Every event, every speech, and every meeting was a testament to the need for connections so we can build a digital future that works for everyone. It is essential that the United States participate in fora like this, because we know that when we multiply the connections in the world around us, between people and things, and among things themselves, we create transformative opportunities for civic and commercial life. We know something else we need to share with our international counterparts. We understand that when we increase connections, we also expand digital vulnerabilities. That means as we head into this connected future, we need to focus on network security like never before. At the FCC, I've made sure that network security is no longer an afterthought. It is front and center in everything we do. For the first time in history, we've revoked the authorization of state-affiliated carriers that have been identified as a national security threat. We built a first-of-its-kind program to remove insecure foreign equipment from our nation's communications networks. We are revamping policies for assessing the security of undersea cables with a new initiative today. And we have proposed measures to address insecurities in border gateway protocol, which can be used by malicious foreign actors and have been used by malicious foreign actors to hijack internet traffic. On top of that, we now make public a covered list of communications equipment and services that pose an unacceptable risk to national security. We exclude this equipment from our universal service support programs and share this fact globally, as I did last week in Africa. Plus, we prevent this equipment from using our equipment authorization program. As part of this effort, this year we suspended the approval of a test lab operated by Huawei and flagged for our national security colleagues other labs with possible ties to the government of the People's Republic of China. There's more to do. In our connected world, new vulnerabilities arise all the time. We need to be on guard, and we need to set a global example by prioritizing network security. We do that here by addressing a vulnerability we identified in our equipment authorization process. This process provides manufacturers with the ability to get the go-ahead to market devices using spectrum in the United States because we've determined that they comply with our rules and they will not cause harmful interference to others. Our rules require entities that seek this authorization to designate an agent for service in the United States and provide the FCC with truthful and accurate information. That means if you are a company based here or abroad, if the agency has any questions about your compliance, we will know how to find you and get answers. Now, Eken is a Hong Kong-based Chinese manufacturer of video doorbells and other connected devices. It sells its products through online retailers in the United States, including Walmart, Amazon, and Sears. Earlier this year, we became aware of serious allegations of privacy and security flaws in Eken's video doorbell devices. Consumer Reports found these devices exposed home IP addresses and Wi-Fi networks. That means opening your home to online criminals. The potential for abuse is vast, like from theft to domestic violence to state-sanctioned surveillance by malicious state actors. So we got to work and we started an investigation. Very quickly, we found a big problem. When our Enforcement Bureau team sought to serve a letter of inquiry on the problem, we discovered that the address for the agent registered in our equipment authorization process was not valid. This violates our rules. It is the foundation for the enforcement action that we vote on here today. But we're not stopping here. This agency is also notifying all telecommunications certification bodies that evaluate and certify devices through our equipment authorization process to stop processing any applications that involve this designated agent. Today, we're also starting an audit of all other filers that use the same agent, giving them 30 days to respond or face consequences. This is just a start. We need a fuller accounting of how cheap and insecure electronics from China and elsewhere wind up at major retailers without lawful approval from our equipment authorization process. Because as our connections here, at home and abroad multiply, we all know that we need to make sure that the devices we bring into our homes and businesses are safe. If we want to build a digital future that works for everyone, this has to be a priority. I want to thank Senator Rubio for alerting us to the vulnerabilities in these video doorbell devices and Commissioner Starks for his efforts in this investigation. Thank you also to the staff who worked on this action, including Michael Antonio, Hunter Deely, Loyan Igal, Eric Enrick, Jeff Gary, Matthew Gibson, Samuel Hanks, Stephen Hansen, Peter Hyun, Alice Sue Joe, Shannon Lip, Jeremy Marcus, Lauren Merck, Neil McNeil, Elizabeth Mumo, Kevin Pittman, and Victoria Randazzo from the Enforcement Bureau. Reza Bazarian, Jamie Coleman, Ira Keltz, Dana Schaefer, and Jim Slesgia from the Office of Engineering and Technology, and David Konskal, Erica Olson, Robert Primrosh, Joel Rabinowitz, Anjali Singh, Elliot Tarloff, Shauna Yates, and Shin Yu from the Office of General Counsel. And now I will ask if any of my colleagues have any announcements they want to make at this time. Commissioner Carr, we'll start with you.
Yep, thanks.
Commissioner Starks.
Time of the year to say goodbye to my interns. Each of them has done tremendous work. I'm so proud of them. 3 of them are here today. I'll ask that they stand and be recognized. Alfonso Marquez, 2L at George Washington Law School. He's taken a deep interest in AI. Oh, look, they stood together. Look at this band of the trio here. Alfonso, raise your hand. Thank you for your hard work. He's also my Early Career Diversity Initiative intern. Second is Talia Sampson, a 2L at the University of District of Columbia Law School. She recently completed FCBA's Diversity Pipeline program. She is going to be going to the Eagles versus Ravens game, y'all. So well wishes that her team wins there. Third is Andrew Ware, a 3L at George Washington University School of Law. This is his second internship here at the FCC. He previously interned with the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau. Thank you each for your help. Fogley Dennis is a 2L at the University of Maryland School of Law, and she wrapped up her time earlier this week. Thank you all for what comes next, and all the best for your finals here coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Symington, any announcements?
Thanks, none at this meeting.
Commissioner Gomez.
Thank you. Yes, I have a few announcements as well today. First, I'm happy to report that my legal advisor, Haley Steffen, is going on maternity leave. So while I will miss her sound advice, leadership skills, and sense of humor, I am very happy for her. So relatedly, I am delighted to announce that Jessica Griffinius, currently the Assistant Chief of the Wireless Bureau, will be serving as my acting legal advisor on wireline and public safety matters. Jess should stand up. Thank you. Jess joined the FCC as an attorney advisor in 2016 and has worked on a range of wireless communications issues and served in numerous leadership roles since then. Prior to joining the commission, she was in private practice working on communications and media issues. Jess earned her Bachelor of Science from Northwestern University's Medill School of Journalism and a Juris Doctor magna cum laude from American University's Washington School of Law. Our office will benefit from her creative thinking and conscientious nature, and I look forward to working with her. And I'd also like to introduce my new executive assistant, Sierra Noakes. There's Sierra. Before joining us, Sierra was an executive assistant at NAVC under the Department of Defense and worked in the private sector supporting executive-level staff for more than 5 years. Sierra's skills and can-do attitude is a great addition to my office, and I am so pleased to have her on my team. And finally, I want to recognize my legal externs, Sarah Neal, whose last day is today. She's here, along with Carolyn Joseph and Francesca Burke, who left my office last week. I appreciate all their hard work this fall. They attended ex parte meetings, briefed me on circulation items, summarized comments, helped with travel planning, drafted remarks, and wrote policy memos on complex issues. If anybody saw my intergenerational leadership skills remarks, she's responsible for the cringe. I have been impressed with their analytical skills, creativity, and diligence, and I wish them the best in their continued legal studies, and I cannot wait to see what they accomplish next. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, commissioners. And before we adjourn, I want to make a few announcements. I've got 2 retirement announcements and some personnel announcements. Okay. The first retirement announcement is Tracy Brigham of the Enforcement Bureau. She's retiring after 37 years at the FCC. Tracy credits her career as a telecommunications lawyer to her time at the negotiations group at GTE Corporation, where during lunchtime she read about telecommunications transport and was hooked. She began her time at the agency in the Tariff Division and later moved to the Enforcement Bureau. Throughout, she's been an advocate for the staff of this agency, thanks especially to her work with the union at the FCC. During the last third of her career, she served as a leader at the NTEU's FCC chapter and has advocated tirelessly for the rights of this agency's employees. And if you work here, Tracy is someone you should really thank for your service. We are so grateful for her time at the agency, and she will be missed. Our second retirement is Howard Parnell of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. Now, Howard joined the agency way back in 2011, bringing to our halls his experience as a managing editor of WashingtonPost.com's newsroom and the lead for NPR's New York web design. He taught online journalism courses also at American University. And he took over just when the FCC established its web and print publishing division, and he built a team that helps set up consumer information on our website, as well as materials that have been used by the agency over the years for outreach. He then created the Consumer Help Center, which is one of the most highly trafficked web pages on fcc.gov. He also assisted with translating this material into multiple languages, Braille, large print, and audio formats. He made accessibility a priority. And during his leadership, we actually also saw that we had materials on COVID he was responsible for, as well as a range of materials that helped us get out the word about the Affordable Connectivity Program and help ultimately more than 23 million households get online and stay online. So thank you for your service, Howard. Now I want to conclude with a few personnel announcements. Loyan Igal, who served as the head of the Enforcement Bureau and has been a dynamo at it for over 2.5 years since February 2022, has pivoted to a new role as a special advisor. And that means that Peter, who is sitting right here before us, Peter Hyun, who is Deputy Bureau Chief at the Enforcement Bureau and will be serving as the acting chief of the Bureau. You already saw his efforts today. Now, Peter joined the Enforcement Bureau after serving in several senior roles at the Justice Department and Department of Transportation, and most recently, he served as Chief of Staff at one point for the Enforcement Bureau, and we are so grateful to have your skills, expertise in the role as acting chief. Finally, I want to announce a departure from the FCC from the Office of Economics and Analytics, and that involves Chief Julia McHenry. Julia joined the FCC after receiving her PhD in economics, and she helped actually set up the Office of Economics and Analytics. The agency was really lucky to get her. Julia's rare. She is an outstanding economist, and she's a terrific leader and manager. She established OEA as an institution within the FCC and fostered a collaborative work environment where experts thrive, and the bureaus and offices across this agency look to OEE regularly for advice and guidance. I'm going to admit that I had my doubts when this office was created. You can go look it up and read it. But I want to tell you that I was wrong. And a real big part of that is Julia's professionalism and smarts. She brought strategic planning and vision to the office, standardized regulatory impact analysis, led spectrum auctions, and has been a formidable part of our data collection efforts. She's also supported economic analysis and review throughout the agency for rulemakings, transactions, and more. Two things I want to especially highlight from my tenure. The OEA team led our successful auctions in the 3.45 gigahertz and 2.5 gigahertz bands, and the OEA team was a critical part of our efforts to engage in really massive broadband data collections and build a mapping infrastructure at this agency that is just light years ahead of anything we previously had. As a result, we can make data-driven decisions about where broadband is and is not in this country like never before. Julie is behind all that and more, and she is absolutely going to be missed. We wish her well. I'm pleased to announce that Dr. Kate Matreves will be acting chief of OEA. Kate has almost 15 years of experience at the agency, starting in the Wireless Telecommunications Bureau, and most recently has been Deputy Chief of Economics for OEA. We're really glad she's willing to take on this new role. All right, Madam Secretary, would you please announce the date for the Commission's next monthly agenda meeting?
The next agenda meeting of the Federal Communications Commission is Wednesday, December 11th, 2024.
Thank you. Until then, we stand adjourned.
Good morning, everyone. If you have any outside conversations, please take them to the foyer. We'll be starting with the Chairwoman's post-open meeting press conference. All right, Chairwoman, I think with that, we'll let folks get to the table real quick. Okay, great. All right, perfect. All right, Chairwoman, I think we're ready.
Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to Paloma. It's her birthday today. This is how she's celebrating it with all of you.
Happy open meeting.
Happy open meeting. All right. Why don't we start at the end? Just name and where you're from.
Madam Chairwoman, thanks for the opportunity. Matt Daneman, Communications Daily. Characterize your legacy, if if you would, please. What do you see as your biggest accomplishments? What do you see as the things you would have liked to get done that probably are not going to get done?
I'm so proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish at this agency. I started during the pandemic when access to this agency was not a given, and worked with the staff using the power of communications for an extended period. We set up the largest broadband affordability program in our nation's history. I'm proud of that. We connected millions of students who were caught in the homework gap through the Emergency Connectivity Fund program. We have made national security matters front and center at this agency. We now think about them in every single thing we do. We have gotten going an Internet of Things U.S. Cyber Trust Mark because we understand that the security of devices we bring into our homes and the Internet of Things is going to be a big deal now and in the future. And we have set up the Space Bureau, which I think was a very smart decision to ensure that the United States has leadership in the coming space economy. On top of that, I'm very proud of how we've given voice to some communities that have not had voice at this agency before. We worked on digital discrimination. We set up a code for missing and endangered persons that is especially helpful for the indigenous women and girls who go missing in extremely large numbers on our tribal lands. We improved 988 for people who are having suicide and mental health problems. And we also made sure that wireless emergency alerts are available in multiple languages so individuals get the help they need when situations are dire. And also we implemented the Safe Connections Act and made sure that survivors of domestic violence have access to safe communications like never before. I think that's a powerful record, and I really appreciate the work of the staff to help make it happen. Oh, I'm proud of what we've done at this point.
Dave Shepardson from Reuters. Thanks for doing this. Two questions. One, I want to ask you about Salt Typhoon, which appears to be one of the biggest attacks on the data, potentially thousands or millions of Americans' telecommunication services. What can you say about what the agency is doing to respond to this? What security vulnerabilities does that raise? And then if I could just ask on a second topic, what concerns do you have about sort of the independence and the First Amendment rights of broadcasters going forward, given the questions or the criticisms raised by the president-elect?
Okay, let's start with Salt Typhoon, and what I can tell you, it's an area where we are coordinating with many other authorities across government. Our coordination is close and ongoing. As I've said before, the First Amendment is a cornerstone of our democracy. The FCC should not be in the business of taking away a broadcast license simply because a public official does not like the coverage or content on that station.
Hi, Chairwoman. Chris Cole with Law 360. I did want to ask about Rip and Replace. Could you kind of tell us the state of the program and what can be done to help carriers who are operating on prorated reimbursements at this point? And
Yeah.
are you frustrated that Congress hasn't acted on this?
Rip and Replace is really important. As you know, we have a over $3 billion shortfall from Congress for the funds required to make sure that the carriers that have this insecure equipment in their networks can take it out and fully replace it. They've got obligations to do so under the law. We need to make sure that this obligation is fully funded. I have written, 7 letters to date to Congress on this issue, giving them an update on it. I think that we're going to try to give them another update on where things stand right now and continue to suggest that this needs to be a priority in the lame duck.
Hello, Kelsey Griffiths with Bloomberg News. Chairwoman, I wanted to ask you about whether you might move on a petition that I believe is before you now to define or set up some bright line rules for when broadcasters are behaving in the public interest. I've heard that this petition is out there and is maybe an attempt to get something on the books before the next administration comes in and potentially makes use of this public interest vetting in potentially a different way.
Under the Communications Act, every broadcaster that uses public airwaves has a duty to act in the public interest. But as I have said before, I'll keep on saying the First Amendment is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the FCC should not be in the business of taking away broadcast licenses because a political official does not like the coverage or content on a station.
Hi, Chairwoman. My name is Stefan Modric. I'm with S&P Global Market Intelligence. First question is pertaining to the FCC's wiretapping authority and whether or not you think that the FCC can act on expanding security measures there in light of the Salt Typhoon hack.
Are you asking about the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act?
Yes.
It is part of our ongoing discussion with other federal authorities. This is a broad-based cooperative effort to understand the extent of the Salt Typhoon incursion and what resources are available to agencies like the FCC to help with the response.
Thank you. And then just a follow-up is on the subsea cable security front. Could you speak to the level of coordination, perhaps, that you may have had or discussions with any allied telecommunications agencies, and what sort of kind of synergy or coordination can benefit the global security there?
I think you saw in my statement, I referenced some of the big initiatives that the United States has with others. We've got the Quad Partnership that has been working together on the security of submarine cables and what measures need to be taken to protect from physical threats and cyber attacks. In addition, at the UN General Assembly in September, there was agreement to what are called the New York Principles. The United States is one of 30 countries that has signed on to those principles, and it is something that we will be advocating that others do as well.
Eva Doe, Washington Post. Thanks for doing this. Your successor as chair has talked about cracking down on the censorship cartel of big tech as a priority. I'm curious of your thoughts on the FCC's authority on this area.
It is essential that every public servant honor the Constitution. The First Amendment is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the FCC should not be in the business of taking away broadcast licenses because a public official does not like the content or coverage on that station.
Hi, Chairwoman David DiMalfetta from NextGov FCW. Great chatting yesterday. Appreciate it. Two small questions. One on the cyber trust mark. Any updates there on an administrator? I know that process is ongoing, but if you have a timeline there.
The applications were filed with us. We'll have to check back with the Office of Media Relations. I can't remember the day. We're going through them right now, and we are looking forward to proceeding in the not-too-distant future.
Thank you. And my second question, sorry to bring up Salt Typhoon yet again, but you expect to have a formal proceeding out to reform CLIA standards before your time is up in January?
We are coordinating right now with many others across the government to understand the scope of the attack and what next steps look like.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you, Chairwoman. And with that, I welcome Katie Gorsak to the podium. She'll be leading our Bureau press conference.
Hello. All right. So we're going to cover the items at today's Bureau press conference only. So we'll start with the NPRM for the submarine cable rules. Are there any questions on that? Okay, Matt. So if OIA could come on up. Thank you.
Chief Tanner, Matt Adaman, Communications Daily. Thank you for the opportunity. Real quick question. The subsea cable industry, through the International Connectivity Coalition, had raised some sort of broad criticisms of the item. I'm wondering if these were accounted for at all in any changes to the item. And aside from what Commissioner Starks mentioned, were there any other changes to the draft item, between the draft and the approved item? Thank you.
We did receive comments from ICC, and we looked at those and incorporated that which made sense. The item itself, there were it was a very long item, as I mentioned. We did additional clarifying of terms and descriptions. There were additional questions asked. Commissioner Starks had us ask questions and other questions that came up that would help make sure that we had the most robust record as we went into the report and order stage. So, and then there was just cleanup edits throughout the item.
Aside from the questions the commissioner said played a role in including it, what other questions were added to the item?
You'll have to wait till the item comes out, but I mean, there were questions related to what was already in there and helping elicit additional input into the item. So, all right. Anything else? Oh, yeah.
Eva Doe, Washington Post. Thanks. So this is the first major review since 2001, and the release says, these systems have greatly changed since then. Could you talk a bit more about what has changed and what most urgently needs to be addressed in this review?
There's been a number of changes, and both in the type of ownership of cables. Back in 2001, most cables were owned by consortiums of carriers. Now we're seeing a number of more private cables being built. I think the threat environment has changed in terms of concerns about particular owners of the cable, and so we're looking at issues related to ownership of the cables. I'm trying to think of any other threat. That's kind of the two big things that have happened. And then, we've had a lot of experience over the last 20-something years working through the what was known as Team Telecom. It's now the Committee on Foreign Investment that applications that come in with that might raise national security or trade policy concerns, we refer to them. We've been working with them over the last 20 years, and we've learned a lot during that process, and so we're looking at changes to help expedite the review of cable licenses, including how that process has been working and improvements to that process.
David?
Yeah, thank you. Can you just help clarify the scope and scale of how this works in conjunction with the cover list? Is it just kind of a mirror image of the cover list, like cover list equipment can't go into subsea cables, or is it cable owners and operators from foreign adversaries? Can you just help us better understand how that works?
So we ask a number of questions about that. I don't think they're, in terms of particular proposals, we do propose that equipment that is on the covered list not be included in sub-cable infrastructure. But again, there are a number of questions asked and about that. I can't give any more details than that, unless my staff has. No, okay. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Stefan Motors with SME Global Market Intelligence. Are there any challenges? Obviously, there's been a lot alluded to in terms of the challenges presented by the private ownership of these cables. Is there anything in terms of jurisdictional ambiguity when you're talking about international water and the different legal frameworks with allied partners or others in some of these different regions where these cables are?
So the item does talk about our jurisdiction, and we seek, we make a proposal or talk about the jurisdiction and seek comment on that. In terms of submarine cables themselves, and they are international by their very nature. That's something we've been addressing since we started issuing licenses, decades ago. Nothing's changed in that respect, but we do seek comment on additional ways that we can ensure security, specifically in light of the fact these are international facilities.
Any others on this item? Okay, you're off the hook. All right, we're going to move on to our caller ID authentication rules item. Are there any questions on this one? Going once? No? Okay. Moving on to the Media Bureau's program originating booster item. Any questions on that? No. Okay. Last but not least, proposed fine against Eken from the Enforcement Bureau. Yes. All right. So, Peter?
Hi, Eva Doe, Washington Post. Thank you. So the release on this item mentions there's going to be an audit of hundreds of certifications that use the same designated agent. Could you talk a bit more about what further investigations on related topics are going to look like?
So I just want to be careful here because that audit will actually be under our Office of Engineering and Technology. So I will defer to that, and we can, of course, provide more information on the background. This was, as the item had noted, part of a related investigation for which, unfortunately, I'm not in a position to share more on the actual contents or status of that investigation.
In that case, could you maybe talk just a bit in general about what kind of risks and issues in general this one case illustrates?
Certainly. I think, well, if you look back and the chairwoman had cited to it, I believe also the commissioners had referenced it also, but the Consumer Reports published an investigative report back in February of 2024 with respect to some of those risks that I think you are seeing. And I will just refer to that report more generally as one that, of course, involves a multitude of possible vulnerabilities that, again, are where folks who want to be purveyors of this type of equipment in our homes could have access. With that, I will just defer to that Consumer Reports report there for you.
Any additional questions on this item? No? Okay. Thank you.
All right.
All right, well, this concludes our Bureau press conference. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.